Hi, I'm Megan Farrow from Mustard Seed Training, and this video is going to explain how we use dynamic measurement. So if the situation that has come up is we have a diorama that we make as a 3-wall diorama, and the customer wants to make it a 4-walled diorama. So I'm going to explain, if I was there in person and I was going to cut it, or you're going to get yourself or a local woodworker. It's really not that hard if you have the right tools to cut out a 4th wall that actually fits. So the first thing I want to explain here is in the catechist of the Good Shepherd materials manual, they generally call for 1/4 inch plywood, which in metric would be 6mm plywood, and they just stick the corners directly into each other and then glue them and then hold them in place until it sticks. This was started by my predecessor, Mike Witowski. We now all the members of our team do this. When we build dioramas, we make a joint corner using a process called a rabbet. So that's this right here, this little shelf. Okay, so we don't just take one piece of wood, we don't just take a flat piece of wood and stick another flat piece of wood against it. When you get our unassembled dioramas and you put them together, the flat edge is actually going to go into a joint here made by a rabbet. Okay, and because we do those indentations, instead of using 6mm or 1/4 inch plywood, we use 3/8 inch plywood or 9mm plywood for most of our walls. So they're just a little more sturdy. What that means, though, is that the dimensions that you will see in the materials manual are just going to be just a little bit off from what we do because of the width of the wall and also because of the rabbet. The other problem we have is that we're working at our home workshops on tools that we have to set manually, which is what you're going to do when you make your 4th wall. So we use what's called dynamic measurement because we're not a factory, so we don't have dedicated machines that are set up to certain digital specifications or whatever. We're not cranking out hundreds of the same exact thing or thousands or whatever they do in a factory. We're setting those distances for the saws ourselves, and if we want those things to fit together, there's going to be small differences every single time we do that, just because we're humans. So that's why we use what's called dynamic measurement. So for example, if I was going to cut a bunch of these walls, I would take our template piece and I would put it up to what's called the fence for the saw that tells you, that's the thing that holds the wood that you're going to push past through the saw blade, keeps everything the same width. And we're going to use our template or another piece from the same diorama so that they come out exactly the same. So every batch might be slightly different. The width of the rabbet might be slightly different. There's little differences, but when you stick the wood together, those little differences look like big differences if they don't fit exactly. So that's a background for other woodworkers, material makers out there who are making dioramas. And if you just want to make a 4th wall here with something that has this, you know, uses this rabbet to stick it together. I'm using an example of our synagogue, which is another 3-wall diorama we make. This one's made by Thomas Pollock. And so because it has 3 walls, it's all glued together. But we have our rabbets here and down here, etc. So you're going to take against the flat part on the bottom your measuring tape or your ruler. If it's you can probably just use a 12-inch ruler to go from one side to the other. In this case, this is 13 and a half, or I'm sorry, 13 and a quarter inches. Now, this distance is going to be different than our back wall, which is a total of 14 inches. Okay, so that's why it's important. You got to figure out what your distance is, and that's going to be, you know, how much you cross cut it. And then you want your width, of course, you're going to go from the base to the top here. This one is 7 3/8. Okay, so that's how you measure out. And usually in this case, I would, you know, first cut it, do what's called a rough cut, the 7 3/8, and then you turn it and you're going against the grain for your cross cut. So I usually make the shorter one, the cross cut. The less you have to cut against the grain, the better, to do, you know, your length. And then that ensures that you have exactly that dynamic measurement, ensures that you have exactly the length and height that you need for your 4th wall. So hopefully that's helpful. Let me know if you have other questions, and hopefully, you know, if you need more details on cross cut and rough cut and those sort of things, I can go into elaboration. But the big thing is dynamic measurement. You're just measuring the bottom and up to see exactly what your piece is going to look like. Thanks. God bless.